Me and Danny have been away. We arrived back home on Tuesday from our wonderful trip to the United States. And as most of you know, that was my first ever time to fly over the sea and into America. And wow, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I am hooked. What a wonderful country you all live in. I felt so much love and warmth and grace from the moment we touched down in Atlanta airport. And it's just really great to know that God knows what to do in every moment of time. He knows what we need. He knows what we need to encourage us, uplift us. And his timing is absolutely perfect. He is not slack. And he wants us all to really know that he's with each and every one of us. And I really, as we embarked on our journey, we had great expectation for God and this trip to really just walk in that love, to really just be led of God's Spirit, not to manufacture anything or try to do anything in our own strength, but just to walk in that perfect love and confidence that God is moving us in every direction. So we left and we went to Atlanta and we stayed with Vida and Tony Moore. They live in Georgia, McDonough in Georgia, out in the country. And then we left them and we went on a wonderful cruise where we got to meet many different brothers and sisters who were on that cruise, part of our group. We got to spend a lot of time with Sakina and her husband, Alan. And each day on that cruise, me and Danny would wake up and we would pray and we would say to God, because the ship, for anyone who's ever been on a cruise, you can appreciate what I'm saying, but the cruise, the ship was humongous. I don't even think that I saw all of it. I thought I did, but then I kept going through different elevators and different doors and seeing many different things. So unless there was time planned for us all to meet, it was very unlikely just to bump into anyone that you were with because the ship was so big. And so we all met at 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. for dinner. So we got to eat and fellowship with each other, but then everyone would go off and do their own thing. But what really blessed me and Danny, so each morning we would pray, God, whoever we're supposed to be with this day, whoever we're supposed to fellowship with and connect with, just bump us into whoever that is, either in our group or even people we don't know. We left it in God's hands. And what blessed me so much is pretty much every day on that ship, me and Danny bumped into Sakina and Alan. And we had wonderful, wonderful fellowship with them and wonderful fellowship, the words that God was speaking through Sakina and through everyone else also. But it was just cool how God knew who we needed to be with at that time. So when we were on the ship, we then stopped at some beautiful islands. We went to the Bahamas, Nassau in the Bahamas. And if anyone knew, me and Danny, we've always had such a strong desire for the Caribbean islands, especially Jamaica. Jamaica has a big place in our heart because of our family, my family. So for a very, very long time since I met Danny's always had a strong desire for these Caribbean islands. So, because we have a lot of Caribbean people from different islands who live here in the UK. And so the fact that God took us to these different islands was just incredible, you know? And so we went to Nassau, had a wonderful day there, fellowshipping and just a wonderful time experiencing that island. Then we were back on the ship and then we went to the Dominican Republic. And for me and Danny, we didn't plan anything. The heart for this trip was we were really just going to be led of God's Spirit. So we didn't plan anything like excursions or anything like that. So the day we were in Dominican Republic, we were talking to somebody, I can't remember who, and they were saying they were going to do this, this, and this. And if you wanted to do something, you best go now. So me and Danny, we just prayed, like, what should we do? Well, anyway, we ended up having the most amazing day. We went to the Dominican Republic, and what I noticed about that country, which was quite surprising to me, was how poor that country was. Me and Danny really prayed and intercede that God would open up great doors within the Dominican Republic, and people can start seeing and knowing God how we see and know God, and start being free. But we went into these waterfalls. We went jumping off the waterfalls on into the beautiful water. We then went in the AVs or buggies, where Danny was driving, and then he said, "Oh, do you want to go?" And as I was driving, as any of you know, Danny calls me the female Vin Diesel because I like to drive really fast. So as we were driving these buggies, it went up off the air, and I hit my head on a branch on a tree. And the guy had to stop the buggy and was like, "Are you okay? Maybe you should swap." It was so funny. I'm obviously really laughing hard. But we had helmets on, but it could have been quite dangerous. But God's protection, even in our stupidity, and us trying to speed up, God's grace is always with us. God always covers us. When we invite him in, when we trust him with our whole heart, when we're leaning on him and not ourselves in absolutely every area of life, he protects us, he keeps us safe. He gives us great opportunities. He walks us through great prosperous doors, and he gets us to experience things that only he knows will truly excite and edify and encourage us. You know, for people like all of you, you may not know the desire me and Danny have for like different Caribbean islands, but God knew, and God knows. So the fact that when we were invited on this trip, that was a part of it. It really built our faith. And God really wants to build your faith. He doesn't want you to be stuck in tradition. He doesn't want you to be focusing on your old man or things of the past. But like Van said, keep moving forward. Don't be distracted of the things in the world, being consumed by the knowledge and the logic being promoted in the world. Like this storm in Florida has been taken care of, and it's been rebuked and is going to dismiss into nothing. And so, because God keeps us safe. Like when in 2015, some of you may remember, there was a huge earthquake within Nepal. Huge, and many lives were taken, but every believer in that country was safe. You know, it was temples and other gods and other idols that were destroyed, but every believer that we know and beyond in that country was safe. So God's children will always be safe and protected when our hearts are towards him. You know, he won't let any of us perish or be in harm's way. So all believers in Florida and wherever that storm is protected and safe. In your environment, your homes, everything is safe. You know, it will bypass it. So God's with each and every one of us. So for me on that AV, even though it was a bit silly, God had us protected. From there, we then went and looked at some monkeys. Apparently this was meant to be a really safe environment, wild monkeys jumping over us. But when we entered, the monkey caught hold of the guard's finger, and he had to put the finger down. He had to leave because the monkey wouldn't let go of it, and we seemed like this trail of blood. And all these monkeys are still running over us, but no fear. Like no fear, you know, perfect love casts out all fear. And even in the craziest of environments, we don't have to have no fear. We're to be blessed. We're seated on the right-hand side of God. You know, the whole of creation has to hear and listen to our voice. That's why it's important we be careful and mindful what we're saying, what we're declaring, what we're speaking. Again, what you said about Van, in your sharing about the politics, you know, whoever's in place, we just speak good. We just speak very good words about whoever may be in, if we like them or dislike them, because our words are the most powerful words in the whole world. You know, our words are filled with spirit and life, and they're energized by the spirit living within us. They're energized by our Heavenly Father. So we really have to be dedicated and conscious about what we're saying and speaking into our life and into the lives of our country and with the people around us. So from there, the Dominican Republic, we then went back to the ship, had a wonderful dinner and time, and then we were on the sea again, and we ended up in Turks and Caicos, Grand Turk, which I believe is the capital of there. And we got to just be there and have that great time. Again, we've seen loads of people, locals, who we got to speak to about why we were there. Obviously, our accent is very strong, being a very British English accent. And most of the people we were around were obviously American or other countries. So our voice stood out. So it drew people to us, and people would ask questions, and we got to speak and share and give those heavenly words that God had directed through us. And there was a few open doors on the ship also. You know, there was a couple of people that came to us, and we just got to share and minister. We handed out our number to a few people. We didn't take anyone's number, but whoever is desiring this truth, whoever's desiring the more excellent way, then God will draw them to connect. God will draw them to us. There's nothing we have to do in our own strength or manufacture. We just keep our hearts looking only to God, being open to everything God has for us, being free in our heart and our mind to just walk in the path God has for us, even if that path leads you to the Caribbean islands. Woohoo! So from the ship, we then landed in Orlando. And from Orlando, me and Danny got on you guys in America call it the Greyhound. We just call it a bus. And so we got on the bus and we went to St. Pete's in Florida, where we fellowship with Preet and Johnny, and their hospitality was just so beautiful, tender, loving. We had a wonderful time with them. And from there, sharing all the wonderful things, you know, Preet and Johnny had wonderful testimonies, and we got to share wonderful testimonies, very similar testimonies in a lot of it also, but we got to really encourage one another. And from there, we went to Clearwater Beach. Me and Danny had a couple of days on our own, and we just, again, our hearts were just open to God, and God connected us with some people. There was this one couple on the beach who just started opening up to Danny about life. And he started to share that he was in a bit of trouble because of his oil wells. He had oil wells and they were like not producing anything, and it was having such an impact, and he was depressed and all of these things. All we said was hello and again why we were there, and he just started to really open up his heart. And so Danny shared the wonderful testimony about Fred and his oil wells, and how when Lawrence and Kim went over, that Lawrence really ministered to those wells, and now they're producing. And so this guy got really excited, and Danny said, like, when your wells produce, which they will if you believe these words, then you have to remember that God is your sufficiency, and you have to honor God and with your first fruits, and because God's going to prosper your wells. So now you need to give thanks to God. And so again, that guy got Danny's number. So that was so each step of the trip, God had us at the right place at the right time with the people we needed to be around. You know, God gave us everything we needed each day. God knew the fellowship we would need. You know, God knew exactly what we would need and the people that we would need around us, from either fellowshipping with brothers and sisters we knew for a long time, like Sakina, or fellowshipping with random strangers. God really opened mine and Danny's heart. And from there, we flew back to Georgia again to stay with Vida and Tony, who their hospitality was just so awesome. Their love for God and the incredible people that they have around them. Vida's quite isolated out in the country, but God has her at the right place where she needs to be, and for the people in that area and that location who God is drawing to her. So that was really great to see also. We had wonderful fellowship at her home, where me and Danny shared our testimony about how we got together, and how the devil really tried to pull us apart, like pull us apart. He beat us up And again, it was through our own stupidity of thinking that we were with God and we could have one foot in the world and only one foot with God, living, you know, taking drugs, drinking, being real in the world. But yeah, it was dark, you know. But God always had his hand on us. He always protected us. And then when we made that decision in 2020 that our life was going to be for God and we weren't going to take the devil's crap no more, and the awesome things that happened, a lot of you already know this, so I don't need to share it. But those people in that room, they had never heard our testimony before. They had never seen God go to work in one's marriage the way that God went to work in our life, in our marriage. And I really got to emphasize the importance of praying and really going to God and not letting the circumstances or the things going on around you cloud your mind of who God is and what God is able to do. So it was a great fellowship. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. We got to minister to a couple of people after, who one lady, she was with us for about 4.5 hours. So again, hearts were opened, you know, people who were really conformed to religion and certain traditions, you know, seeing a different way, a more excellent way, a more freer way to really just walk by that spirit. And so from there, then Vida had driven 5.5 hours, 6 hours to South Carolina, where we got to be with our sister again, Sakina, and her wonderful husband, Alan. They met us in the hotel. And then the next day we went to their house and had a beautiful fellowship in their home and got to share. Even Sakina's husband shared a little bit, and it brought such joy and excitement to my heart to hear him share and to hear his heart. And then from there, we obviously went back to Vida's, and then we came back home. But so that was just a snippet. Many things happened. So one of the testimonies that was really huge to me is that Danny ordered a drink, and on the ship, everything's done by your room key. You don't really need your bank cards or anything like that, but we would always carry them with us. And when Danny paid for his drink on his room key, we've gone somewhere and I've gone to ask him for the room key. He said, I don't have it. And we were like, but there's the bank card, our credit card, the room keys, so 4 different cards, and we don't have them. And we went backwards and forwards looking on the ship, like, where are these? I searched myself, Danny searched himself, and our cards were gone, bank cards. But the other thing was, when we were in the Bahamas, in Nassau, Danny had one of these bags which your phone went into, and it closed, so it was protected from the water. But when Danny went in the ocean, he didn't close it properly, so the bag filled with water and it completely killed his phone. So we had no phone. We've now got no credit cards. We were on a ship with no internet. You know, all of these things could have tried to present fear or worry. But God really comforted my heart, you know. He said, it's okay. You're on the ship. No one can use your bank card. So if it's lost, someone will hand it in because it cannot be used on the ship. So I said this to Danny, and we just prayed and thanked God for that peace. And we went to guest services to ask if anyone had handed it in. So we've gone to guest services, and when we went there, she asked for something. And when she asked for it, I went in my pocket. And as I went in my pocket, all of my cards were there. And they were not there before. I emptied every pocket. I emptied everything. Like, they were not. That was a miracle that was in front of my eyes, in front of my husband's eyes. And God just really brought great peace and comfort to know that he's with us, even when the circumstances, we're in the middle of the ocean. We've got no communication to the outside world. We've got no bank card. But God again protects us, and he keeps us safe. He keeps us with everything we need, you know. And the key was, we did not respond with fear. We did not respond with anger or worry. We responded in faith. Straight away, we were like, God, you've got this in your hands. Wherever the bank cards are, you bring them back to guest services. And he brought them back, even though it manifested in my pocket. He brought it back to guest services, the place where we declared it would be. So this really, again, built my faith. and encouraged me greatly that God will never leave us nor forsake us. You know, wherever we are, he will meet us where we're at. He will do what he needs to do without reservations. God has no reservations. He has no limits. He is able to do and perform whatsoever we need at the right time. And so from Danny's going to share, I know Danny's got some stuff because Danny really ministered and he's seen some really wonderful things. We both did, but it was through God working through Danny. And again, it really blessed me because Danny works, you know, a lot of hours. He works a lot of hours and I don't get to see him that much. And we don't get, apart from our fellowship, we're not out around a lot of people. So to see God work through him, I've always seen God work through him very, very powerfully since the day I met him, since the day that God used him to heal my face and to give me sight in my eye. You know, God, I've always seen a great love for God through Danny, but sometimes through our conditions and the situations we're going through, we get restricted on what we're able to do, you know, just going to work, coming home, being in that kind of routine. So for me to see what God was doing through Danny on this trip was just what I needed. God knew what I needed, you know, because he was ministering, he was speaking, he was doing what God has always put in his heart to do. He had nothing holding him back. He had no restrictions. He had no time limits. He had nothing, you know. He was just the man of God who God had called him to be. And he was able to be so free. And to watch that, it just, yeah, you're thinking, but it's not, oh, it's the truth, you know, because I am married to Danny, and to watch that, there is no greater joy than a wife to see her husband doing the things that God wants him and desires him to do. So it gave me great inspiration, great encouragement that God has such a plan for my husband and me, but God has such a plan and he's going to push him to places that only God can take him, and he's going to utilize him in such a way. And if I can stand back and watch the glory of God manifest through Danny, I'm blessed with that, you know, I really am. And I desire that Danny will be full-time very, very quickly, and that these traveling arrangements and where God needs us to be, we will definitely be, because of the heart and the purity that we have towards God, you know. And so being on this trip, reconnecting kind of as husband and wife, and with many different people, with many different strongholds and addictions, traits, religion, you know, so much. But just to see so many people come together who love God and want to hear what God has to say, just really built my faith. It encouraged me and gave me great excitement still for the future, you know. And I know God has such a plan here for the United Kingdom and for the laborers and leaders here in the United Kingdom. And I'll just finish off with, all of you guys on here know that God really put it strong in my heart to go to Norwich, which is 4.5 hours from the UK, from Bristol. And he really put it in my heart. I didn't know where this area was, this location was. I had a one-on-one with Lawrence one day and we had to look it up on the map. And then God said to me and Danny, go. And we drove up there one weekend and we had a beautiful weekend. And we didn't really get to speak to anyone, but we weren't discouraged. We got to pray for the city and keep confessing it from our mouth. And then we came home, and in my prayer and in my confession and on my desire, my vision board, I've got Norwich. I've got a little picture of it and I've got it. And I declare over it every day. Well, anyway, when we were traveling on the airplane to Atlanta, I got speaking to this lovely lady next to me, and she was telling me all about her travels. Well, then she decided to tell me that she was from Norwich. I was like, wow, that's really encouraging. I said, and I again explained to her how God had encouraged me and Danny to go to Norwich. And this built this woman's faith. This blessed her, didn't it, Danny? Like, she was like, wow. Again, I gave her my number and didn't think anything of it. But then when we were on the ship, just as we were about to leave Orlando the first day, me and Danny went up to the top deck. And Danny said, oh, I wonder if there's anyone from the UK on this ship. And this young boy and girl, they were like 24 and 25, they said, oh, we are. We were like, oh, wow, where are you from? We're from Norwich. So I was like, of all the people from the UK on this ship, you're from Norwich. So I got to share, and they didn't really understand, really, I think, about God and why God gave the vision. They really didn't understand. But we got to give them again we said, look, here's our number. If you want to know more, if you want us to visit your area, like we might not see you on this ship again. And we didn't. But what God encouraged me throughout the whole time is like, do not let the desire I've put in your heart burn out, because what I've put in your heart will truly come to pass. Even if it's like in my heart, because I went up there, I probably thought, oh, well, I didn't see much, but God was reassuring me and comforting me to really keep that desire burning, when he puts a desire in your heart, you lift it back into his hands, and then he goes to work. The only thing we have to do with the desire God gives us is put it back into his hand, because he's the one who's going to work. He's the one who's going before us. He's the one who's making the way, and he knows what he wants to fulfill in all of our lives. So because he's given us free will choice, we then have the choice if we want to accept that desire and move with it and run with it and go with it or not. And so when we say to God, God, you've given me this desire, and this is really what I want to do, or where I want to go, and I want to be sent by you, I lift it back into your hands and let you go to work. And then it takes the burden away. It takes the concern of, well, I need to do this, or trying to manufacture things. It gives God the freedom to really move. And then we get to see the excitement. We get to see the glory of that. And so this really, really blessed me. Obviously, we've only been back a couple of days, but I know out of all the people we spoke to, there was definitely one person who was hungry, who received the words gladly, and were going to connect. And wherever, if they were in the Caribbean islands, if they were in America, if they're from Norwich, wherever they are from, there was 100% that one who is going to connect, and there's going to be a fresh field in that area. I don't know where that is, but I know with absolute assurance there's that one, because God sent us for that one. We don't know who that one is. We can have a thought in our head. We can have things going on in our mind, thinking, oh, I'm going to do this, say that, have this, do this. But God is the only one that knows. So I know, so here you're hearing it from God speaking through me, that there is one out of that whole trip, maybe more. I'm not restricting God, maybe more, but there's definitely one who's going to flourish and grow and live in a more excellent way. And their area and their location is going to become on fire. And we're going to see many leaders and laborers come out of that one person who God connected us with on that trip. So great things, looking forward to the future. Lawrence and Kim are away next week, so I'm really praying for their trip and the doors God is going to open for them, and just continue to walk in this heavenly flow, not get distracted with the world, not trying to manufacture anything or do anything in my own strength, but really just stay humble, like you said, Van. Stay at peace, stay meek, stay humble to the words we're receiving, and to do what we know to do. And that's all we got to do. And we're doing it. You're all doing it. The growth and the power and the wisdom coming from this fellowship has changed each and every one of our lives. And we can go deeper and deeper and deeper into this walk with God, and he will truly reveal such greatness in front of our eyes. So don't let your circumstances restrict you. Don't let what people have said about you restrict you. Don't let what the news or the weather reports are saying restrict you, but stand in faith. Stand in faith, knowing your God is with you. He's gone before you, and great and mighty things can come to pass in your life if you believe and if you're dedicated to stay with it. So that was one in my heart.